Warning: this review is rated PG-13 for strong language and adult themes. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome back to the Day of the Barbarian series retrospective, where I will attempt to go through each and every episode of this series and see how they all hold up. If you need to get up to speed on what this series is and what the overall premise is, be sure to check out this series' intro video for all the info you need to know. With that said, let's take a look at episode 1, The Maddening Sprite of the Stump.
The Jabbers!
So, here we are at the beginning of the series as far as air date is concerned. This episode was written by Mark Drop, who only wrote 3 of the 43 episodes, so hopefully he shows himself to be a better writer for this series than what we've seen so far. We've taken a look at the beginnings of this series, as in the series pilot that aired as the 13th and 14th episode respectively, and with that monkey off our back,
I'm not a monkey!
we can move to air dates. Hallelujah. Because the pilots for this series were a bit rough, as they were trying to get a feel for what they could do with the characters and setting, while they were also establishing the personalities. Their quirks, their virtues, their weaknesses, and so on. But even with that caveat, Beauty and the Zit was still pretty awful. So here's hoping that this episode can be the one to set the bar and prove to me that this show still holds up, because so far it's been on shaky ground. This was actually the episode I've seen the most times. Not by choice, mind, this was just the episode they aired the most for whatever reason. Hell, for a long time, this episode and the one that followed were the only 2 episodes on YouTube, so I was tired of it back then, but it's been a good decade since I've seen it, so does that opinion still stand up? It opens promising enough with the requisite dramatic narration by, who else, the narrator. Udragoth is under siege by, well...
As our story begins, Udragoth is under attack from perhaps the most dreaded, most ferocious of all creatures. The Muffin. Not that one. That's it.
A giant monster muffin. That is exactly the type of non sequitur ridiculousness that I expect out of this show. So, the royal family is tasked with destroying this giant muffin, and they argue over how they're going to do it for an extended period. This sets up the primary conflict in the episode, the family not being able to work together, but duty calls despite the fact that they can't decide how they're going to fight the giant muffin, or as they put it,
We can't stand around here fighting with each other. We have to go to the Enchanted Forest and fight with each other.
so they're off to the Enchanted Forest.
The Jabbers! That's the 4th biggest muffin I've ever seen!
Honestly, if I were to do a rundown of every great joke in this scene, I'd have to show you the entire scene because it's just zinger after zinger. Even the lines that don't hit come and go so fast, they're at worst inoffensive. But the wit, the physical humor, it's all on point. When I talk about the strengths of the series, this scene is a primary example of every one of them. If I had to pick one highlight though, it's this part.
Chaos.
Dude, you made it bigger.
Yep, I'd say a good 10%. Do I know you?
And the great thing is, the talking tree thing was actually set up in the previous scene.
I can't stand the Enchanted Forest! All those talking trees and stuff creep me out!
That's what I'm talking about. Writing so tight that everything said has a purpose. It's either a joke or a line specifically to set up a future joke. And this entire scene is filled with too many great lines to go over all of them.
Halt, you pestilent pastry! I can't allow you to maim, slaughter, and destroy without the proper permits.
Anyway, the plot of the episode is established when Dave accidentally gets Lula stuck in a nearby stump. You could probably see the direction this is headed. After they defeat the Muffin, they try and fail to get Lula out of the stump, even pausing for a brief Rocky-style training montage, which is hilarious.
Hang on.
And then the titular sprite of the stump appears and says that only the true ruler of Udragoth shall retrieve Lula from the stump.
Is there anything here that isn't enchanted?
I think that one rock over there.
Nope, me too.
Now, whether you count this as the first episode or the third episode, this is the first time that Lula is an important character within the plot. I wouldn't go as far as to say that this is a spotlight episode, but it's veering in that direction. This is definitely still an ensemble episode. The sprite of the stump ends up being the antagonistic force of the episode though. He's more of a passive antagonist as he doesn't try to hurt anyone or kill anyone, he just manipulates the rules so that he ends up becoming the ruler of Udragoth. Based on his look and demeanor, I have a feeling that they were basing him off of Phil from Disney's Hercules, although they didn't get Danny DeVito to voice the sprite unfortunately. They did however get the best voice actor to hand in Jeff Bennett, who as you know is the voice of the narrator. The sprite is played to perfection, and even though so far this episode has shown itself to be pretty dang good, he's easily the highlight of the entire episode. He has sort of a Newfoundland accent.
Whosoever pulls the sword from the stump shall true ruler of Udragath be. Yank out the sword and you're the king, see?
If I may digress a moment, I've always found it funny when people refer to it as a Canadian accent. When speaking as a Canadian, I've met exactly 0 Canadians in my life with the stereotypical Canadian accent. Which is why we in Canada refer to it as the Newfie accent, because that's exactly what it is to us. It's a Newfoundland accent. Anyway, Jeff Bennett also plays the character of the sprite as if he's really apathetic about his job. It's really hard to play apathetic while also putting across a good performance, but Jeff Bennett does a fantastic job. If I were to describe the sprite's personality in a sentence, I'd probably go with used car salesman. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves, so we go through a montage of characters trying and failing to pull Lula out to no avail, as well as Faffy being an idiot. Then word spreads far and wide that only the true ruler of Udragoth shall pull the sword from the stump, and so you have people lining up in droves and reporting to the chiropractor that's right there once they fail. Damn, why is everybody's pullout game so weak in Udragoth? Amongst the participants you have Bane, Balrog, and Tatanka. Once again, this is to no avail, meaning the conflict of the episode becomes this.
Let's see here. Enchanted Forest Rule 9823645 stroke B. If no one can pull out the sword, the sprite of the stump becomes king.
So as I mentioned, he's now the ruler of Udragoth and nobody's able to stop him. Naturally, he starts abusing the hell out of his power because, well, just because he can. As far as the danger of the situation, this is pretty low on the scale, but where it makes up for it is in the annoyance. We've all had shitty abusive bosses. Hello, Greg. And this is a parallel of that, so it's always nice to see them get their comeuppance. While the sprite isn't going to maim, slaughter, or destroy our heroes, he's no less deserving of our ire. The scene where the sprite takes over is probably the weakest scene so far, but it's still got some good lines, and at worst, once again, is inoffensive. He just goes through each member of the family and abuses them one by one. The feet stuff I could have done without though, but once again, this was probably at least somebody's sexual awakening. And the thought of that greatly disturbs me. Also, I'd like to point out that this is the leg of a goose. Yeah, if you shot it with gamma rays. This continues on for a while until a full tilt argument breaks out. Then the aforementioned foot stuff, and then the peasant from earlier comes in to warn them of the Muffin Monster's big brother coming to attack.
Do you remember the Muffin Monster?
Nah, I came in after that scene.
Now, normally I'm less forgiving of fourth wall breaks like that, but this one is delivered pretty well, so it got a chuckle out of me.
Whichever one of you manages to slay the Muffin Monster wins this. It's an immunity totem. Whoever wins it is excused from giving me my evening sponge bath.
This scene starts out with a pretty meh joke.
Hey, he threw my room! All my dollies are in there! I mean, all my weapons!
The idea was solid, but the line delivery ruined it a bit. It just didn't sound natural. They fight amongst themselves again until they all decide that Lula is the only thing that can stop the monster muffin.
Look who decided to finally visit!
Question: how long was Lula there if she has vines growing on her? What was the time jump between scenes? In desperation of not wanting to give the sprite a sponge bath, they all inadvertently work together to free Lula from the stump because collectively they're the royal family, so they are all the true rulers of Udragoth. It's a good payoff to the episode theme of working together to overcome life's biggest obstacles. Once they were able to stop fighting and work together, they finally succeeded. Or maybe the whole true ruler of Udragoth thing was bullshit. Maybe the sprite rigged the whole sword in the stump thing and just got it really stuck in there so that he could become king, and then coincidentally the combined strength of all of them got the sword unstuck. I choose to believe that, if only because A, it's funnier that way, and B, the whole royal family thing excludes Throcktar and Glimia, the king and queen. Either way, it's a good payoff to the episode's conflict, but we're not done yet.
Hey, he threw my room! All my dollies are in there! I mean, all my magic stuff?
Okay, so the first one was a bit lame, but that one got me. Wait, what? Why was the sprite in Uncle Oswitch's room? What was he doing? I'm not kidding, this has bugged me for years. Who cares? Either way, he disappears back into the stump never to be seen again, and I don't think I could do this ending justice. Clearly they were running out of time and just had to tie up the muffin plot without wasting what little time they had, and much like a well-placed censor bleep, sometimes what you exclude is more funny than what you include. So they do this.
Defeat the Muffin in an exciting battle, which we can't show you because it would be much too expensive for a cheap show like this. Thereafter, the monster's enormous muffin top provides bouncy fun for all the children. Except little Billy Mencken, who isn't allowed on it because he's been bad. The end.
That last joke killed me. I am now a talking corpse. Like, that was by far the best joke in the entire series so far. Granted, this was technically the first episode, but my point still stands. I saw this episode so many times, but that joke slipped my mind after all these years, and it was just hilarious here as the first time I saw it as a result. I wonder who that kid was. I wonder what he's doing these days. If you are Billy Mencken, please reach out and maybe we can schedule an interview. And that was episode 1, or 3 depending on your perspective, The Maddening Sprite of the Stump. This is what I'm talking about. It embodies everything I love about the series. It has a simple, wacky plot packed to the brim with humor. And while not all of it worked, the hit-to-miss ratio was really good. There were some real gutbusters, and the jokes that didn't work weren't cringeworthy or flat-out painful like some of the jokes in Beauty and the Zit. What's notable about this episode is that the use of the narrator combined with the sprite being a major character made this episode very Jeff Bennett-centric, which is good because he's probably the best actor on the show. I wish there could have been more time with the sprite being a horrible leader. As it sits, we got one short scene. I wanted to see how he made the lives of the rest of Udragoth miserable. Like, what did the average peasant in the kingdom think of him while he was the ruler? But that's what you can expect from 11-minute episodes. The fact that they were able to do as much as they did in as short a time as they did was nothing short of a miracle. There were even times, that ending in particular, where the episode utilized the time limit to its advantage, making for quick-fire, gut-busting hilarity. I still wouldn't say that this episode is top tier, but by this point you can definitely tell that the writers knew exactly what they were doing. So I'm going to give this episode an ultra-subjective score of 7 out of 10. It's a high 7 veering into an 8, but it's still a 7. If this show can keep up this level of quality or better, I can't wait to watch the rest of it. Next time we're going to be taking a look at my other most watched episode, episode 2, Shrink Wrap, where Dave changes careers and goes into psychophilimacology. Until then, you've been watching the King of Snark style on Tactical Bacon Productions, saying what I want, when I want. And if you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing, maybe even dropping a comment telling me what you think. Maybe then single females really will become available in my area like all those porn ads keep telling me. Until next time, peace.